Hi, this is Fenton Mediation, and I'm your host, Greg Fenton. Each week, we explore topics and ideas related to the experience of people with conflict and look to promote the profession of conflict resolvers. We are available to connect with at fentonmediation@gmail.com or 647-227-4734. Check out the Facebook page for Mediation Station and the group page as well to ask to become a member. Also visit YouTube channel, Fenton Mediation, to see videos of past shows. Listen to podcasts of Mediation Station on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Please follow us at our Twitter account at Fenton Mediation. With me tonight is Laura Tarcea as co-host for the conversation. She'll be with us shortly. Happiest Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Just want to acknowledge my mom, who's out there somewhere and had passed on, though she's in my thoughts and heart every day. I want to share with you now a special moment. And with me and with us is Vanessa Caro. And she's going to recite a poem that she's written. All right, go ahead, Fanny.
Hello. I just want to start by saying that this poem is actually very important to me and like very dear to me because I feel like it speaks about my soul and like it like summarizes everything that I've learned in my whole life and in one poem. So and kind of like how I feel right now. So, okay. It is called Shine Your Essence. Bright inner light hidden within, always present, yet hard to see, lost in layers of resentment, yet looking to be seen, never too far away as it is always there. Decisions to be made can lead you there. Decisions to be made can lead you away. Every minute of every day, you have a choice to make. Which path to take, we ask ourselves. Questions to be answered, never outside. Questions to be answered, always within. Blurry vision turns us blind, unable to see the beauty in sight. One step ahead, taken in faith, shall show the way to your inner flame. Burning flames that are far too tamed, let your inner sun shine bright as day. Shed your fears, illusions are at play. Layers peeled, at least one per day. Go deep within, please open the way. Shine your light as your true essence is displayed. There you go.
Thank you very much for that. So, like, who are you? Why are you here?
Let's just say that I'm very passionate about helping not only myself, but like the whole world. If I could, I would.
And what's our connection?
Sorry?
What's our connection?
What's our connection to like help the world?
Me and you. Now, what's our relationship?
Sure. Yes. So Greg is basically my dad. He's my stepdad, but I see him as my dad. So yes.
Why do you write poetry? Like, I know you're actually writing a book too.
Oh yes. Oh my God. Thank you for reminding me. I just want to say that writing is one of the ways that I express myself. So we all have like a way to expressing ourselves. And I find that this is very important. And this actually plays a big role in preventing conflict. Because when you find that creative way of expressing yourself, it becomes like a healthy sort of, let's say, a healthy way to communicate with the world in a way that you're not hurting or harming anybody or anything.
So you can get out those feelings that are kept within, the frustration, the concerns with regard to a person or a situation.
Yeah, or even just being just by being creative and expressing yourself in a way that makes you happy, you're making a big impact already in helping.
How long have you been into this mode of doing the writing?
I remember since I was little, I used to write poems. Since I was like little in Colombia, I always used to write poems. I had like a folder full of poems and things. And I remember in grade 7, I wrote some story about some donkey in the jungle.
Yeah, it was the old lady in the burrow, wasn't it?
I remember that. So basically, I've been writing my whole life.
Look, we have a comment from the someone in attendance here. I didn't realize Vanessa was your Vanessa. Oh my goodness, it has been a really long time. Amazing, lovely, self-assured, intelligent. So great to see after so very long. That's a good friend and also a colleague from the world of that I do with conflict. Lynn,
Thank
thank,
you.
thank you, Lynn.
Thank
So,
you.
so what are your plans with the book?
I'm actually almost done writing it. I'm like at the very end. It's been quite a journey. It's taken about 2 years for me to actually like write it.
What
So yeah.
what's its theme or focus?
Well, it's based on fantasy, let's say fiction, but there's a very positive message there as well. I feel like it has to do with how do I say, like I always find a way to help in whatever way I can. So like let's say through my poems, like basically having a positive message. Like because sometimes we get too overwhelmed by all the negativity in the world and let's say whatever, anything that let's say it's gonna hurt us in some way. We need to turn this around and turn it into hope and turn it into peace and joy. So not getting stuck in that like bad feelings.
The negativity.
Yeah.
And so you also have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And what's that about?
Okay, so actually I just started a Spanish one today as well. So because I've been doing like an English one like for a while now, but now I'm like I also want to help the ones that speak Spanish. So I'm like, okay, I need to start something in Spanish. So my the one that I speak like in English, let's say, it's called Inner Outer Vision with V. I don't know if you guys can show that later because it's all together and I it's kind of long.
Well, yeah, okay. And what's its purpose? What do you try to do with it?
Basically, I want to show tips on how to have a healthier lifestyle, how to find time for yourself to meditate and sort of kind of relax, put all your worries away for a second and just focus on your mental health. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that you do from your heart because it's not something you do for quote financial means.
No, I don't get anything for it. Well, I do. I get a lot of satisfaction when I feel that I'm helping at least another person to be happy or like at least find a little bit more peace in their life. That means the world to me.
Okay. Any questions from the crowd? Okay. So I appreciate you coming on tonight, especially on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And so what from the crowd, can you recite again the YouTube channel that you have?
Or should I write it down in the messages?
Can you do it in the chat?
Yeah. I'll do that for sure.
Type it in the chat, and then that way it'll be a record, and Laura can actually make it into something because we can take this segment with you, edit it out as a separate file, and provide it as you even to upload it to your channel.
Thank you. To be honest, I'm just so passionate about helping. It's my passion. It drives me. Mm.
Well, I hope it doesn't drive you crazy like my passion does.
It's a good kind of crazy. It's a good kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's about taking the negativity and making it into positivity for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
So now we're getting the some more crowd here after your segment has been presented. I'm hopeful though that once we get that piece, that video file of you, that goes viral.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say before we say see you soon?
I just want to say, of course, thank you for, sharing this moment with me. Like, because I feel like this is like close to my heart. So I do appreciate that, like, you actually cared about listening to me. So I just that means a lot to me. So I'm very thankful.
Well, initially my thinking was to recite it for you. And the sense was that I just thought about it more. And I said, hey, how about having you, the writer of the poem, the poet, say it better because you're going to speak to it much better than I am because it's coming from your heart and your passion.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So you're welcome to sit in the crowd and listen and watch the balance of the conversation, which we're going to transition to now.
Thank you.
There we go. So today, we're going to talk about Dear Mom, You Divorced Well. So we continue the program live each Sunday night from 8 to 9 p.m. through Zoom due to COVID-19 safety measures. We will engage in conversation with everyone attending, able to listen and watch the conversation. Microphones and webcams will be closed, and if anyone wants to contribute anything, there are two options. One is to see the chat icon as a bubble at the bottom center of your screen for you to click to then type in a comment or question and click to send. Or you can click on the reactions icon that is also located on the bottom center of your screen for us to see. Click on the hand icon for us to then see again, and you will be able to be spoken because we'll open up your mic only, not the webcam. You can share your piece, your comment or question, and we'll close your mic again. The show is being recorded for both video and audio purposes and will be uploaded for public access on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, and a local convenience store, wherever you want to go access that. No, Laura, I thought you said it was going to go to convenience stores.
A local convenience store.
That's my understanding. You see, I just don't have the right understanding. So tonight, now, Laura, let's talk. Dear Mom, You Divorced Well. So welcome back to the front of the camera.
Yay! My favorite part of the show is when I'm at the front of this camera.
Yeah, I'm not hiding in the bleacher seats in the background there.
Yeah, no, it's very important for me, especially because I get to reset my lights and adjust all sorts of things here in my self-made studio.
Well, I see this show
I
obviously.
still don't think this light is perfect, and Vanessa's light was absolutely phenomenal. So, but then again, she's in Mississauga and I'm all the way in Pickering, so that definitely has something to do with it.
Yeah, it must be the lighting in Mississauga is much better.
It must be the Mississauga lighting. I don't know. She's closer to the west, I guess. Beautiful sunset, golden hour.
Yeah, that's a possibility. So how about you share one thing about yourself that you believe no one knows about you?
Oh,
let's dig into there. Let's get some openness, some transparency. Who is the real Laura?
I think everybody who knows me knows pretty much everything about me. I'm pretty much an open book. And if I'm not open right at the beginning, then after the first or second glass of red wine, I certainly am open or become more open. So I'm not really sure if there's anything that people don't know about me.
You sure? Are you just being coy?
I actually can't even think about it. I'm not sure what it could be.
Okay. I know people may know this about you. You have a garden, right?
I have a garden.
And you like to grow. What do you like to grow?
Definitely not flowers. I always thought of this, I grew up with my grandma and grandpapa always making, having their orchard and their vegetables growing in the backyard, chickens, all that stuff. Although I'm not allowed to have chickens, by the way, in Pickering, just it's like a city bylaw. But you can have chickens in Durham somewhere, but not in Pickering. So that's my next move. But I love eating off the land, so to speak, and I love eating what I grow if I can, or what I make. So I do plant vegetables, and I don't understand taking care of flowers, to be honest, unless you can eat them. So if you can eat, then I just don't understand why would I put so much nurture into it. They look pretty, but so do tomatoes.
So you want to eat whatever you grow.
I think that's important. We have a limited time.
Yeah.
right? We care for so many things. We do so many things. So I think if I was going to dedicate time to a soil, then I better be able to eat what grows out of it. You see what I mean? I know you
Yeah.
see what I mean.
I see what you mean. I know you like to focus in the garden too on peppers, like hot peppers.
Very much so. So every year I am researching the hottest peppers, and I'm trying to find the seeds or the seedlings of, somewhere someone already started them. So I will plant them here and hope for the best. And at the harvest time, I make a mean hot sauce. Um, all windows have to be open. I put an announcement in the home that nobody has to be or should be in the home, just for their own, nasal and protection and breathe if they want to breathe. And then, you know,
Do you
we,
put a warning in the neighborhood too?
I should actually, because there's a lot of sneezing happening
Yeah, I think you
because of
should be
it.
mindful of your neighbors because they might be hearing whatever, or, sensing some kind of aroma that they may question and say, hey, we need some understanding about that.
Oh, yes, for sure, for sure. Well, there was that, I think there was an article at some point, or there was a big brouhaha about, I think, I'm not sure, it was a hot sauce company, and the neighboring sort of areas started complaining because they were breathing in the spiciness or the hotness. So there was an impact. They were feeling it. They were feeling in the breathing. So I'm not sure how they figured that out in the end. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see how it would impact at a grand scheme or great scale of cooking a hot sauce, because it's pretty insane. It's insane.
I remember too from my days at conflict mediation services of Downs, dealing with community conflict stuff about neighbors, especially in apartment buildings, when one culture would be cooking their traditional foods and the neighbors next door were like, that's not working for me. And
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
would try and work together to help the perspectives.
Tea tree oil. I mean, really, I used to have a friend who lived in an apartment building, and she still is, she's vegan. So she had, the I think, a couple of apartments that were consistently cooking meat, so she could smell heavy meat in it. So it was very bothersome for her. And we honestly, tea tree oil worked really well. We actually went and put tea tree oil all around the door and any kind of entrances. So that worked. That actually worked really well. It helped her with the breathing as well. So it's something that you can, put in a steam shower or anything like that. It can be tea tree, it can be anything kind of, of that eucalyptus. So all of those actually helped, masking, but also, not necessarily having to be upset with her neighbors every single evening for dinner, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I can see that.
So what does it mean to you to work as a family mediator? How do you connect with that?
I connect with people, and I connect with people in conflict. And I connect with especially families who are going through the separation, right? So that's my connection directly with it, with the mediation, but also with the fact that I always have a hope. It may be misplaced, but I am an optimist that there's always an option. There's always a solution to something, or for someone. We just have to sort of get to, I don't want to call it their interest, but the needs or something that hasn't been met in that particular person's, whatever it is, life or event or experience. Something is not being met. This is how I look at it. Something is not being either met or communicated, maybe clearly enough, and it just can lead to a discomfort or to a, I guess, misunderstanding, which can then lead to a conflict. Although I don't really think conflict is a negative thing, but that's a story for a different yeah, for a different time.
That's the traditional view. When, my experience, when I share about what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word conflict, everybody always recites the negativity, the problems, the fights, the struggles. And I think we've spoken over the years about how conflict presents an opportunity.
Absolutely, it does. I have many examples where conflict was necessary in order to build a stronger relationship or a stronger understanding of a particular, thing, factor. So it was, I have plenty of examples. And if I would have lived the examples, I don't think I would have been so strongly feeling about that, but I certainly live them, and I continue to live them. I think we live in conflict every single day, one way or another. We just don't label it as conflict, right? So but certainly it's growth, it's an opportunity to grow, right? And it's a shame that we see it as a negative thing, and we're so scared and avoidant of it, right? And we the initial instinct, or the brainwashing, or so to speak, is to try and move the other way, right? Or quickly de-escalate it, but sometimes it's not about de-escalating something. Sometimes it's about understanding and allowing for that openness to happen, in a safe space, that conflict, right? So
Yeah, and I think as a mediator for you, maybe me for sure, it's about reclaiming the words and the messaging.
yeah,
So
there's a
that,
lot of reclaiming.
yeah, and presenting it as that opportunity rather than the barrier, the impasse, the obstacle, where people will say our differences have become so affecting of our relationship that we can't continue. So we have to avoid each other. We have to go down separate paths rather than work together. So
Mhm.
why would you, with regard for dealing with people's lived realities of these experiences, why would you intentionally put yourself in that place?
It's my misplaced optimism. So that's why. um because I really do feel people do deserve a second chance or a second pair of eyes sometimes at the table, which I wish sometimes I would have had, right? I would have a second pair of eyes, or a second perspective, or a different perspective, to help me understand, or to help me go over a bump. And just like Vanessa said, I actually do also feel a lot of reward from helping. So helping is at the core of my being. It's always been, it always will be, and it eats at me when I know that I may be able to help, and I put a lot of work into it for the sake of people. And I think once you know that you can do something, you ought to do it. You almost have a responsibility to do it. So if you have a particular skill, or if you have a particular calling, let's say, for lack of better words, I think you have a responsibility to share it and to do it, right? So I know it doesn't sound very modest, but when I'm even now listening to it, but I do feel that I connect well with people. I feel that I don't judge. I think all the experiences that have made me whom I am today have helped me really genuinely, sincerely not judge people and people's experiences and journeys, and even where they're at today, right? So that's,
Mhm.
in a long-winded way, my answer to your question.
So when people come to you and you work with people, what is the sense of what divorce is for them? What's all that about?
Um, there's a couple of different ways that I've seen people approach it, or maybe not a couple, maybe a few different ways. One is a very respectful way, where they immediately feel that the divorce is something it's something intimate, it's still a change, but they're still going to be a family, so they work together. So they want to work together, they just need more information and guidance. Another way that I see families or people deal with separation or divorce is just engaging automatically into a fight, or feeling that automatically they should be at each other's throats. That's what they see in the media. That's what's portrayed in most of the articles. Most of the labeling, such as X, and bitter, and affidavits and all that stuff, they all pretty much, lead to negative association to divorce. So that's usually how sorry, it's just a little bit of a tech issue back and forth, but that's okay. I think we're managing it well. So another different way that I also see people coming in are just misinformed. They really do just need information. They really don't know any better, and they just want information, and they will follow through with that information. So they need an educational lens to help them through their separation and divorce. But certainly, you know what, there's a majority who actually believes that they have to be in a fight. They have to be at each other's throats, and there's no other way. And otherwise, why would I divorce? Why would I separate, right? So there's many other reasons why, people would separate and should separate. But it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a fight. So I think that will take a cultural shift until the society is going to recognize that it's the wrong way to look at the divorce as a negative fight driven transition. Because there's a lot of harm in taking that approach, right? So, and I think millennials are understanding that now. I mean, I'm seeing a huge difference in between how our generation, or our generation deals with separation and divorce, and the new generation, how they're dealing. I think in that sense, and I hope my children are not listening to me right now, because I always tell them that they're not as mature as they should be, but I really do feel that the new generation is much more mature in the way that they are dealing with. So I just don't want to compliment my kids right now. But I think they're much more mature in the way that they're dealing with this transition. I see a lot more maturity. I see a lot of couples working together, understanding that they perhaps have grown apart, but they still have a child or a few children, and they will make the best out of it. There's sometimes smiles, there's sometimes shoulder next to shoulder in the mediation. So, but it's funny, because as I'm speaking, I'm noticing that the younger generation is the generation who seems to approach it a little bit differently than past generations. So kudos to them in that sense.
Yeah, the reality though is, if they get married and they want to end that relationship, so marriage is a legal concept, it's a legal construct. Divorce is a legal construct, and we have to go into the legal system in order to get a change of that status. Because you know from your work that when people marry and they have babies and they acquire property, they can actually address on their own, independent of the court, everything about their circumstance. They can make decisions together about how to equalize the property, the child support, the parenting plan, all the terms of that change of the relationship. The only thing they cannot do on their own is change the status. They must file an application for divorce at least. So they're compelled to go into the system, the construct that says division, separation, positions, conflict per se. I mean, how are we ever going to get a change of that kind of thinking?
I think how we're ever going to, well, I think that, I mean, the families are going to change themselves, right? I mean, they're going to create the change. It has to come from them, right? So it's going to be from the families. It's not going to be from the legal system. The legal system has zero interest in changing that. There's, you know, status quo, you know, we've always done it that way. So why change it? It works well. So it's, I don't believe that it's going to come from the legal system or the system itself. It's just going to come from the communities, and it's just going to come from the couples themselves. And change it may just mean that they're not going to get married legally married, right? I mean, it may just mean that they will continue to, or they will live together according to, you know, whatever belief system they have, right, as a couple, but certainly probably not
So
as a legal.
what's your own experience with regard to divorce in your family?
um I- Well, my parents have separated when I was younger, and I grew up actually in a very good situation where parents were separated. And I know this is the title of the show, but
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought that part of why I am who I am today, and part of why I approach separation or divorce the way that I approach it with families, which is hopeful and optimistic, and not necessarily tragic and harmful, is because of my parents' divorce. My parents' divorce was a very amicable divorce. It was a caring divorce. It took a long time until the divorce actually did occur. So many years. It wasn't overnight. You know, there was a lot of humor in my home, and there was a lot of tension in my home. However, I never felt that I was ever placed in the middle. I never felt that I was made by either one of my parents to hate the other parent, or to spy on the other parent, or to badmouth or denigrate the other parent. I have never heard either one of them denigrate each other. So all of these concepts that we unfortunately see in lots of separations today, and I've never seen it that way. I've never done it that way, which I think I it translates, I guess, into something. So it's I think divorcing well, it's probably hereditary. or it can be, because then my subsequent divorce, so my own divorce from my first husband, was a very good divorce, was very kind. We helped each other. I remember he helped me move, you know, and I was alone. I just came to Canada. I was just, you know, me now separating and by myself. So he checked in on me every so often. And I knew for a fact that if I needed help of any kind, regardless that he did not want the separation, I could have counted on him. So I knew that if I would have made a call, I could have counted on him. So that says something about, you know, what I took from my parents' divorce, and it felt normal to me to go through my divorce in that sense, in the same sort of manner. And this is why I think it is important that families do understand this concept, because children are not going to do what you tell them to do. Children are going to do what you do, right? So that's important. You know, they see how parents deal with conflict. They see how parents deal with a separation. They see how parents deal with a divorce. And you ought to worry, because if at any point in their future, and 50% chance maybe that it will happen if they get married, 50% right now by our whatever stats, that there may be a chance for separation or divorce. You want them to separate and divorce well. You want them to still be healthy. You want them to cherish the good times, the good memories, and plan for future good memories, right? So it's important, I think, for families to understand that and for couples to understand that. And I feel that I need to share that whenever we are in a mediation. I never share, and this is the first time, this is why you felt like a little bit, I have a knot a little bit in my throat, because I don't like to speak about myself and my experience and my story. But I feel that, and I never share it in a personal way. I share it just as other families have done this. So it's important, you may want to consider doing it this way, rather than, a more harmful way. But I don't, I certainly, and I see you smiling because, I
Yeah.
don't like to talk about my story and myself, but I
Yeah.
do like to say these people whom I bumped into, they divorced really well.
Well, actually, going back to my first question that I presented or comment, share one thing about yourself that you believe no one knows about you. You've actually opened up to share that now.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. This is how I'm gonna erase this.
No, no, no,
No, no, no.
no, no, no. This is meaty stuff. This is good stuff, because I think it's important when we do our work and we engage with people who are going through struggles, crisis, trauma, that they understand the concept of they're not alone, that there's others as well out there going through shared or similar kinds of experiences, and that people don't feel marginalized or isolated. So I don't know how much you say about yourself when you're actually doing your mediation processes.
Nothing.
No?
No, and what's funny, because I was even thinking, even at the topic, and I had a lot of a lot of thought around the topic, but I have a hard time sharing, because I think mainly if and when people are in front of me and with me, it's their journey, it's their experience. And sometimes, because we don't meet them for a long time, right? So we meet them for a brief time in their lives. If I've had, more time with people, like years or whatever, then that would have been a very different story. But sometimes I feel that in that brief moments in their lives, in their journey, that you're meeting them, sharing your own story may overshadow theirs, or may feel that way to them, may take away from their own experiences. So I want to create the space where they feel they need to share about their stories only, and they feel safe with me as a listener, as a facilitator, but not as someone whose story may either overshadow, or they may feel that it's a comparison type of thing, right? You don't know how people react during such difficult times. They don't even know how they will react during such difficult times. This is probably their first time ever, trying to grasp certain concepts and trying to, figure out what the next neighborhood is going to be, where they're going to live in, and how they're scheduled to kids and all that stuff. First time they're thinking about this. So I feel that I play a role, but I don't want to play my role in there. I don't want to insert myself. So see, I do have a very hard time. I mask it with humor really well. That works. So then I quickly digress and
Right.
shift topic onto them, because their stories, they're the protagonists.
I hear you, and I understand what you're saying. At the same time, I think one of my purposes, my roles, is to create a connection with people,
Yes.
especially when they're going through these struggles. And again, using that concept, they're not alone. And I understand and appreciate creating the boundaries, that we're not there to take ownership of their lived experience. We don't want to supersede their experience, because we're there about them. And I really promoted that kind of concept from my community mediation days. We do the work for the people. It's about the people we work to assist and support. At the same time, I like to create the approach through empathy, where I hear you, I understand, I'm not taking ownership of your experience. There's a distinction from acknowledging somebody and also at the same time agreeing with them and all that. So there's for me some delineations of that dimension. I may say something that says, hey, I understand what you're going through to some extent, not to the same degree, because I'm not looking to equate my lived experiences with yours or yours with mine. So I do present that periodically.
I understand what you're saying.
Thank you for understanding what I'm saying.
You see how I shifted it?
Yeah, the decoy, deflection.
I understand. Uh,
So why did you focus on this framing of the title? Like, what does divorcing well look like?
with the least amount of negative impact, and with strategic, steps um, that manage anything that could become, negative, because you can anticipate certain things. We have the gift of foreseeability. So we're the only ones who do. So we have a prefrontal cortex. We can foresee, we intuit, we have insight. Hopefully, most of us do anyway. But we can see where things may go wrong, and we have to manage it. We have an option to manage it. So I think there's a choice that you can make right from the onset to create steps that are going to manage all of these negative factors or harmful factors that you can foresee, such as taking the kids away, from one of the parents, denigrating. I mean, there's plenty of research, right? Threatening each other with court action, confiding in your child or in your children, about how bad, the other parent was and is, or, things like that. Telling the children about, the other parent's affairs, if there was cheating or if there's all that stuff. Those are things that can be managed. And those are things that families can foresee that it will damage the relationship for the child, and it will create anxiety, confusion, worries for the child to a degree and at a level where the child is not ready to hear that, to process that, right? I mean, there's a huge difference in between being a parent and being a child, right? And you have to continue to be a parent, right? So those are some of the things that we advocate for, even in the mediation, is to just understand what can be done and understand that there's a couple of paths that you can take as a parent to protect your children, to protect the children's well-being, and to deal with your own emotional stuff, right? Because I'm not minimizing the fact that if somebody was cheated on, it's a walk in the park to have to communicate well with your co-parent. But your child is not the person who should be privy to that information or informed. He's not there in a role of supporting you. You're there to support your child.
Ideally, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I understand that too. The reality is, if our system is structured and constructed a certain way, where it's positional and the justice system is adversarial, that pushes people against each other to promote self-interest rather than the collective interest, the shared interest. And, society overall, the messaging is about it's bad, it's negative. I see such a struggle with the concept to say people can actually have a healthy divorce. They can divorce well.
I see the struggle that you're seeing.
Yeah. And I know you work with that struggle too in your work.
Yes, and it is a struggle, but there are methods that can be put in place and strategies. I have a little bit of a different mindset on that, because my background is I started engineering. So my background is in Romania, and that was my path. My journey would have been engineering. My parents are engineers, and my path was engineering. It was pretty much given. So my mind has always worked in a logical sort of step-by-step process, understands chronology. This is how my mind works well. But also emotions, because without the emotions, there's the logic fails all the time. The process, without inserting the emotions into the steps of the process, whatever that process, however beautifully designed it is, it's going to collapse. It's going to collapse in terms of putting an operation. So I think having a strong blend of this, including having a conversation and the options that can be generated with families based on what process they need to see in order to move well through their divorce, that can be done. It's almost like a roadmap, right? So we always have a roadmap. My families and I, and us anyway, we always want to create a roadmap for the next steps, because separation and having a signed agreement is going to take, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. It's nothing. But putting it in place is going to be the struggle. And how are you going to put this in place? And what's the foundation and the spirit of your agreement? And how can we just remind you of that in every single step, that the spirit is a co-parenting, avoid the children's being put in the middle of what, all that stuff. How do we insert and continue to keep, that spirit of the agreement into
for you to provide that, I mean, let's say for the couple to provide afterwards that they can follow through with the decisions they made in the process at the table. It's so important that you construct that template at the table, so that it provides the template to be the conduit, the means through which they can support each other with the transition in a more holistic and healthy way. Because I see that's part of the intention of what we do in the process for some of us, is to have the meaningful conversations with, what isn't going on, and then how will you deal with the what isn't happening the way you would like it to happen. Because you're making decisions in this controlled space, and mediation is somewhat a controlled space, because we create the conditions, and we want them at their most natural state. At the same time, it isn't their quote natural state, because we're not part of their relationship, especially as co-parents. It's necessary that they are the template with each other to function afterwards as co-parents.
Absolutely. And that's a very important aspect that, and most mediations how they're structured anyway, they don't have a follow-up. And I've always wanted to have a follow-up sort of mechanism that could be put in place. That, you after there's an agreement, there's something or someone who is going to sort of be there in case, or in case a reminder is needed, or just a check-in every, like, I don't know, 6 months or something. And that may not be appropriate for every family. Of course, that's something that you would ask for consent initially and all that stuff. But in the same time, what I always also say to families all the time at the end of the conclusion of the mediation, I say, our door is always open to come back if there is an issue that you cannot get over yourselves. However, I hope that this is the last time I see you. I hope I never see you again. So that's the only instance where I feel it's appropriate to say to someone, I never want to see you again.
Yeah, with the smile on your face.
Of course. Of course.
I mean well when I say this to you.
I mean really well.
Yeah, because it's really about you, and I don't want to be a codependency relationship amongst the two of us. From my community mediation days, one of the purposes too of doing the process was about capacity building, individual capacity building, helping people to build their own skills to deal with these challenges on their own afterwards. so
Right.
that they didn't need us to sort of say, okay, we served our purposes and now we're better equipped to navigate with our challenges and those moments of difficulty on our own. Though, again, complementing that, if you need us, we're still here and we're available for you.
And that's usually how it goes. And I think it's important that they do have that type of relationship and understanding where and we put a lot of work at creating those in putting those in place to have the divorce continue to be, you know, well, and continue to take the steps, healthy steps, right, to keep coming back. But then you have, right, I mean, you have all sorts of other factors that come into play sometimes that cannot be controlled, right? So you prep them hopefully for that as well.
How have you seen that COVID-19 has affected the situation of couples with divorce, and you know how they're experiencing that?
Well, I've seen many kids jumping in the background. I have seen diapers being changed during the Zoom calls. I have seen breastfeeding during the Zoom calls, the mediations. I have seen cigarette smoking. I have seen outbursts of getting up, opening the window and screaming in outside of a window. So I think in terms of what I have seen is it's quite incredible, because you can never see that usually. Generally, you'll never see that in an office. So that's pretty cool that people feel that gives me confidence that I have created a safe space for them to do all this stuff.
They're showing their vulnerabilities for sure.
Yes, certainly. So that in itself, you know, just them being allowed or feeling that they are permitted to do all of these things have allowed them to they helped me create that space. But what I have seen in terms of how they are separating and divorcing, it's there's additional layers of challenges that they're dealing with that other couples who other couples don't, maybe will never have to deal with, right? So in terms of selling a home, right, in terms of having being stuck in the same home, in terms of working in the same home, right, and raising children and having children, you know, in the other room on online working, when, you know, a week they're in person and, you know, 5 weeks they're online right next to someone else, right next to your co-parent. So there have been very different statements that we hear from parents, such as just, I'm tired of hearing her voice. I never thought he was so loud. He could spend all day in shorts or in underwear, and I never knew that. I've always seen him in a suit, and that was very attractive to me. So I have heard very different statements coming from couples who are separating, and that's not to say that these are the main reasons, but they've certainly added to the I'm done. I think I'm ready now finally to move into my next chapter. You know, however, and I've noticed a sense of urgency. So they want it done, and they want it done yesterday, as opposed to, you know, there's a little bit more time in terms of back, you know, when non-COVID. So now they want it, there's a sense of, you know, things are changing in the world, and, you know, perhaps, you know, mortality is a little bit more at the
Forefront.
So there is that sense of urgency as well that we've noticed clearly when we start on mediation. You know, I can't even tell you how many times now we hear, okay, when can we have the agreement done by? And that's just their first call. So
Yeah.
we have an agreement, we pretty much know what we're doing. Can we get it done? So,
Yeah, and why do we have to talk about that? Why do we have to go there? But you know, we
exactly.
just want this.
Yes.
You know, there's more to the perspective of what your efforts involve, and that it would be better for you to go deeper in this process than provide shortcuts that may undermine the capability and the capacity of people afterwards and their understanding and their comprehension of what is expected of them to follow through with afterwards. Because if you haven't gone there and then something arises that you know could have been better dealt with in the process, who's going to be come back? You know, they're going to blame each other, then they're going to blame
Right.
you.
Right, and it's even more than blame. You know, we're doing them a disservice, and I do have a problem with shortcuts, a huge problems. And I do, you know, when someone, for example, one of the main example, the most used example that I can give is if someone comes and says, I know what he has in his account, he knows what I have in my account. I don't want to do any financial exchange or anything like
Disclosure,
that.
yeah.
And I can't, I say, you know what, there are perhaps other mediators out there whom you can call and connect, and then they may do that. Unfortunately, we can't do that. I can't do that because I know that no matter what, it's not even the blame. I want them, sometimes families or couples think they know. But there's a different language, there's a different financial language in this particular example that they don't know unless they are going through a separation or a divorce, where you know, they think that it's as easy as opening, you know, and looking at a balance and finding out what the, you know, balance is for that. But there's a lot more involved in it, such as division, you know, tax consequences, pensions, things like that, that they would unfortunately, even if they have a financial background, even if they've been working in banking and all sorts of stuff like that, it's still, they're not treated the same. They're not the same. It's not the same translation into their separation and divorce. So I would do them a disservice. I want them to have, because they do have the right to full transparency, right, and full understanding of
each other,
of each
especially.
other, and how the financials work too, right? Like they need to know how the financial division works in a separation divorce. Then what they choose to do with that information, completely up to them. But
Right.
they need to know, because if I don't tell them, you know, their sister would tell them, or their brother or their neighbor or a lawyer would tell them, and it will come, you know, actually will come and bite them in the bum, not me necessarily, because they're just going to complicate matters for themselves.
Right. And that's, I mean, we try and do things on a particular level and approach. At the same time, in our society, there is the shadow of the law that casts, you know, we do things on an interest based, where what do you want? What do you need? Though the shadow of the law casts its net on, and the system, as I talked about earlier, where it's, you know, more rights based and concrete and puts people against each other. So the power rests with the individuals through their own self-determination to create their outcomes as best, so that provides a legacy for them to build upon their co-parenting relationship after the process. So for you, what does this conversation mean to you? You know, because you did share some openness about your own lived experience with regard to the divorce situation, and this is Mother's Day.
It means that I have been very well cared for. It means that I have been protected, and I have been put first as a child, and my needs were put first as a child, that I'm bringing into today. Because I really do feel that it takes a parent who understands fully their responsibility as a parent, which is to put their children's needs first. And that may be blurred sometimes when emotions get high. But in my example, in my experience, my lived experience, I feel that that never happened. That no matter how high the emotions were, I've always been put first. So I'm only hoping that other parents can do something very close to that. Although I think my mom is a saint, so it's very close to, very hard to come by a saint, you know. So
Well, I
You know,
know
I'm not
from,
saying just because she's in the crowd.
oh, she's in the crowd. You, oh my
I'm not saying
gosh.
just because of that.
I was going to say that my experience of you with your mother and your sister are that you guys are very close. You're very supportive, very loving of each other. So on this day of acknowledging mothers, though I believe it should be every day.
It is every day, yes.
Yeah. What would you like to share with your mother?
Um, that I love you and always will, and thank you. I think it's the best gift that I've ever received is to have her as my mother. And I'm certainly her best gift. Sorry, my sister is here in the crowd as well, so fine,
Yeah.
Anna. We're both we're you too. You too.
Yeah. And Anna, if you need some kind of mediation process involving you and Laura, yeah, you can reach out afterwards.
We have your number, Greg. We have your
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. Right. So, what suggestions would you propose to people when they are thinking about transitioning their relationship, their marriage relationship, to divorce? What could they think about or reflect upon?
Their children's needs and the fact that they can do this really well for them. And also, you know, there's a gentleman comes into my mind when I'm thinking about this because he he was telling me when he was separating, he was saying, I really want to hate her, and I don't hate her. I think she is an amazing friend to me. I think she's a great mother to my daughters, and I feel like an asshole to separate. I feel like I have no reason to separate, but I'm no longer, you know, on the same wavelength romantically. And I feel that it would be much easier if I hated her, if, you know, if she did something bad to me, or if I just focus on that. And I said, well, you know, the opposite is actually true, because you want to preserve. So regardless of some of, or, you know, a bunch of negative memories or that, you know, one may have experienced, and not this gentleman, it seems like he wasn't, you want to preserve, just for your own safety and emotional health and mental health, you want to preserve what was good, what worked well, what you did well, because that's actually going to be the foundation in your next step. That's going to be the spirit of, and that's what's going to predict whether you can work together or how you will work together, as opposed to focusing on the negative and not only impacting your core and taking so much energy, you know, out of you, and putting it into, you know, into what could be destroying the next chapter. So I really do feel that, well, he listened. He said that's a good way of looking at things. But I really do believe that the amount of energy that you can expense and you can deposit into hating someone is the same amount of energy that you can deposit into building something, into making something positive as opposed to negative, right? So it's the same amount of energy that you can dedicate negative or positive, and you have a choice, right? So that's the choice that I feel most families should focus on, is the positive path. And I'm not saying forget the bad stuff, but perhaps consider forgiveness for your own safety and sanity, not because that person deserves it, but you deserve it. You deserve to unlink yourself from that negativity, right? So another long answer.
It's an important answer. It's a good response. I mean, from my perspective, my experience, because you're trying to create a template of the co-parenting relationship to be the substantive, the foundation that moves forward. And that's foundational on the child-focused approach,
Hmm.
the best interests of the children. And it's like to ask him, how would your children feel? How would they process if they saw you in all this negativity to the other person they love?
Hmm.
You know, getting him to put himself in the place of his children from some point of view. And then you inject back the positivity and say, my experience shows that when people have these healthier views and perceptions, it becomes more the reality and the foundation of creating a better process and relationship. And your children would be better served in having the two of you cooperate and relate in a more healthy manner. Transition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, what do you want them to say about you and your relationship at their wedding or their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah? Like, what do you want them to say about you, right? I mean, when you sit back, and this is what I was saying earlier, that we do have the capacity to reflect, to introspect. When you think back, when to have insight and apply that to these critical, questions about not just about you and how you feel, but what and how do you want them to feel? Do you want your kids to feel? And I think once you ask that question and you have the answer, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, just provide these open-ended reflective questions and let them process that and try and make sense. They may not conceptualize it or make sense of it in that moment. I think it plants a seed that will germinate at some future point, and they'll better connect with that and what your intention is with trying to message things a particular way. So
Planting
anything,
seeds.
planting seeds, yeah,
Well,
positive
going back
seeds.
to the beginning of the conversation, which is planting seeds. So the
Yeah, the
harvest
garden,
is
the garden.
starting. Yes, the planting is actually starting next weekend here in Canada. So here we go. Tomatoes are going in, but I know those are not the seeds you're talking about.
It's similar in some way because it's about creating for growth.
Yes, but hopefully not eating your children, right? So
No, no, not the normal sense.
not in the normal-
No. So
not in a tomato sense.
no, not in any sense, for sure.
Okay.
So anything you want to say in closing?
Um, I think there's always an option to do the right thing for yourself and for your children. And thank you, Greg, very, very much for pushing me into this topic, because it certainly feels uncomfortable. And it's good to feel uncomfortable sometimes, because it's another opportunity for me to learn about myself as well. So, and we hopefully get these opportunities as we move forward, right? So
Yeah, I just see the benefits so much of reflection and self-awareness and going into our vulnerable spaces and then journeying through our our challenges, not avoiding or circling around them. So that takes more challenge. It actually takes, from my point of view, more courage to go through our challenges than to avoid them. So anybody from the floor want to say anything, make a comment or question before we say thank you and good night?
and on that note, so we have a quick comment. Great conversation, Greg and Laura. Lots of great reminders, and I like how you're putting things in different perspectives. Good night, everyone, and I wish you good night too. It was lovely actually to meet Vanessa. She had better light than me though, but whatever, it's fine. She gave me now motivation and inspiration to deal with my own light.
So you need to find the light. Is that what
I
we're
need to
saying
find
here?
the light, yes. So,
Maybe you need to venture forth out west to Mississauga.
probably that's my next one, yes.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you everybody, and have a really good night. The program is going to close. Greg, thank you again for making this happen.
Thank you, Laura, as always. And I'll just do a quick plug. Next week, you're back with me. And we're coming with another person in your life, Mr. Klein.
That's gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be exciting.
That'll be a different kind of conversation.
A very different kind of conversation.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right.
All right.
Have a good
really
night. Thanks.
Bye.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day.